and we're continuing our series on financial literacy with Synergy Credit Union. And today I'm joined by Christine Tucker, who is the Chief Financial Officer. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us again. This series has been very enjoyable for all of us.
Well, and very educational for myself as well. There's just so much that I don't know about savings and money and insurance. And one thing we're going to talk about today is having an emergency fund. And I know a lot of people talk about it, and in theory they think, yeah, I should do it, yeah, I should do it. But what is a fund, and why is it so important to have the emergency fund?
So emergency fund to me, in simplistic terms, really it's a stash of cash for those times that you need an emergency. So you need it easily accessible and able to access quickly so that you can meet the needs that you have in an emergency situation.
What would be some of those things that people might not think of that they use the money for?
Well, and that's a great example, because I think sometimes emergency gets people thinking catastrophic events, right? So they think natural disaster, they think a car accident, and so I think the probability is so low that lots of people think, why have an emergency fund? That's never going to happen to me. But I think really we should shift our mindset, and it's a life happens kind of fund.
Right.
And so we can all think of things that have happened to us that we weren't expecting, that all of a sudden we have to have funds available for.
Well, and even, you mentioned car accidents, but things like even with family, with having children, something could come up with school or pets even, I think is a really good example. A lot of people that have pets don't realize that sometimes if something happens to them, they could need surgery. You don't have that money, and so it's just, you have to, I think, like you said, switch your mindset to think that there are a number of different things that not catastrophic, but it would be really nice to have that fund.
Exactly, yeah, and you don't want to add stress in times where you're already stressful, right? So adding debt in times of stress just adds more stress.
Right.
Which it's just a vicious circle to get out of. And so I think you're 100% right. There's a lot of things that we maybe don't know when they're going to happen, but we know they're going to happen. So a great example is a furnace going off in January and it's minus 30 out. You can't very well say, sorry, my budget doesn't allow for it to be fixed today, right? You need to have the ability to be able to have that put away. Some other examples, a pet is a great example when you're not expecting to have to take them in. A medical bill, there's still bills we have to pay in Canada, even though we're lucky enough to have some of that covered. So I think those are great examples. Or even all of a sudden you're driving along and you have no brakes in your car. Right? So that's very important to have those savings set aside so that you can access them quickly.
And I guess, as we talked about that, what is the best way to get that started? Like, we talked about how important it is and get people thinking about it, but where do you go and how do you get started?
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit different for everybody. I think some people, use the sock method, I call it. Stuff money in there underneath their mattress kind of thing. But really, the best place to go is to, go to your financial institution, open up a savings account, where at least then nobody can come into your house and take your emergency fund. But it's that simple. It's just an account that you can start making regular contributions to. And
I know some people will be of the mindset, well, I can't really afford this, but it doesn't mean you have to put $1,000 away at a time, right? You just kind of budget accordingly, I guess?
Yeah, I think you make a great point. I think sometimes people just give up just because, oh my goodness, it's just so overwhelming, and so why even start? But take something simple. So we all eat out quite often in society today, but let's say you packed your lunch one day a week. If that lunch was $10 and you packed it one day a week, that's $500 in a year. So it could be as simple as just changing that one habit of, and only one meal, you don't have to give them up all. I know people don't like to give up stuff, but it's that simple. And so I think you make little blocks and you work to smaller goals, and then that makes it achievable, and people are pretty proud of themselves when they are able to get there.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Christine. We're out of time for this hour, but we will be back next hour, and we'll be again talking more about having an emergency fund.